Hi, I'm Albert Wustch, and I'm here with Outdoor Solutions from field to table in the beautiful state of Texas. We've got a wild boar hanging here, and we're going to do some specialty cuts off the boar. We're going to take some shanks off to make braised boar shanks or wild hog shanks. We're going to remove the side, the belly here to make bacon. We're going to remove a rack over here to make a rack of ribs. We're going to make a rack like back here, like a rack of lamb, only it's going to be a rack, Frenched rack of wild hog. And then on this side, we're going to use the meat or the bones to make tomahawk chops. So the first cut that I'm going to make on this carcass is to remove the front leg. And I'm going to leave as much meat on the skeleton as possible. So I'm just going to pull this out a little bit, follow this through. You can see there's no seams in there. It's just basically muscle. And I want to leave as much of that meat up there on the carcass. I'm just going to cut right around this front bone right here, the shoulder blade. So now we got the front leg off. It looks just like the front leg of an elk or an antelope or a deer. We got the flat iron steak off of there, the shanks, which we're going to prepare later. So now I'm going to remove all of this meat right here with right along this line, and we're going to make our bacon out of this. So we're going to start right up here and peel this off. And we're just going to come right down. We're going to follow this right down along the loin till right about here, which is about the third or fourth rib, and then we're going to cut up to the neck. We're going to take this off. This was the neck shot. So this is all going to come off. Because we want to use this meat for our cure, our brine, for our bacon. So we're just going to peel this off. And we didn't go down on our loin there, because that loin, we're going to use that for our, say, tomahawk chops out of this. And I want to take all the way down and come right down this brisket right here on the sternum. Now some of the meat here is pretty thin, but we can still roll it, brine it. And of course, the further you go up here, the thicker it's going to get. So now this piece of meat right here, we'll clean this up. We'll take that blood off of there. We'll clean this up. We'll cut this and square this off. And then we can brine this. This would be the bacon. Of course, we need to clean all this off. And then this would be your, basically, we just cut this off. And this would be like your butt, your Boston butt, which we would braise. You could make pulled wild boar, wild hog out of this. You could braise this, stew this. You could even grind this or make a roast out of this. Then on this piece, basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this piece off. Trim a little bit of this bloodshot off. And then this can be brined and cured. You could even, put a rub on there, a brine in there, and then you could roll it up, brine it, and basically we're going to make a bacon out of that. So now we've taken the flanks off, we've taken the meat off to utilize these for tomahawk chops. We're gonna make a rack of ribs over here, but we wanna take the tenderloins out now. So we wanna cut along that bone. So we just follow this pelvic bone, follow the chine bone. And then when we make the cut, you wanna go way in here and go around so that when you get the entire tenderloin out. So nice tender cut, the most tender cut on the wild hog. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the loin off of here. So we find this chine bone right here, part of the pelvic bone. You can hit it, and we wanna just come right underneath there and then go back up to the feather bones that are standing up. So you can feel it right here, come right back up to those feather bones. Now we're only going to take the loin off because we want to make a rack. So we're going to take our knife and cut right down along that last rib and cut right to the spine. Oop. And we're going to take this behind these finger bones and peel this off of here. So this is the New York strip loin. So we have nice, beautiful wild boar, wild hog loin. So another way of cutting ribs other than with a saw, if you don't have a saw, which I forgot the saw, so we got some pruning shears here, if I can get them open. And you could cut right down there with the pruning shears. A saw is you got to do a certain way so that you don't split it, so that it doesn't splinter. And what we're going to do on this side is we're going to make a rack of wild hog like a rack of lamb. So if we look right here, you can see that right there is about where we want the bone to be. We don't want really long bones. So we're just going to take these and go right down and cut these. And then we're going to take these ribs themselves and make a rack of ribs. So here's our ribs that were coming off, and it's going to come off the sternum there. What you have to be careful about when you get down to the bottom down here is that you don't cut the ribs too short, because the further you get to the head, the tighter the cavity goes and the shorter the ribs are. So here's a plate or rack of ribs. So one of the things I like to do with these is put a rub on them and let that rub stay on there in the refrigerator uncovered for a couple days. The rub renders the fat and tenderizes it, seasons it, and then slow cook it and smoke it out at the Rectech grill. So what we're going to do with this cut is we're going to make a rack of wild hog. So we've trimmed off these bones. Now what we're going to do is we're going to trim off these bones here. You could take a saw and cut through here and cut through here and then use a saw to cut through. Or you could use a cleaver and chop through these. But these shears, these pruning shears, work pretty good. So the object is to just cut through the bone, not to go into the loin of the muscle. And if you can't get into that bone, you can use your knife so that you can get the pruning shears in there. Of course, on an elk, you're not going to be able to do this. You need a cleaver or some of those really big pruning shears. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 bones. That's good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut. And basically what we want to do is to make sure that we've gone through those bones. And to make sure that we can get behind those bones. And now we're going to come down along that spine. And if you get to one of these where you can't get around it, just go back and trim it off with those pruning shears. Now I'm taking more than my rack. I'm taking the whole neck off. So here's the rack, and here's the neck. So this is the neck again from the other side. So here's our rack, and if the bones get a little too out of whack, you could always trim them off a little bit more. But there you can see the eye, there you can see the chop right there. So on this side, we've removed all of that bacon, all that cured meat, brined meat. And what we're going to do is we're going to leave this beautiful piece of meat intact, and then we're going to cut right about here to make our tomahawk chops. So we want nice long chops. Maybe we'll even go out a little further to make them nice and long. So basically what we do is we just mark this, and then we'll take and cut those, and then we're going to have to come in here and cut these to take this off. And on this side, what we're going to do is we're going to cut through the sternum right here. And once we get down there, what we're going to do is we're going to cut a rack of ribs. So now on the tomahawk, it's basically the same thing as what we just did, only we want longer bones. So we're just going to take our pruning shears and cut through here. So we have a nice long bone. And this works really good with antelope because you can get a really nice long rib off of them with a nice little eye of the loin there. Okay, so now when we look at this, we can see, we got that beautiful eye there, and we have those nice big bones. So now we do the same thing on the inside, only I'm going to prep the inside a little bit better here so that as I cut, I can get that knife right in between the bones there so I can get that, that pruning shear in there. So our pruning shears would go right onto so that's about 8 or 10 bones. Okay. So we've cut through there. We want to make sure we can try to get the knife through there. We get to the last one, which we're going to come out here. We turn this. We do the same thing. We come down along these feather bones, down to the chine bone. Now the object is to just come in here come around each one of those rib bones. So now we have our rack with the nice long bones. And then we're going to take this inside later and clean it up and French it. And we'll cut it in individual chops. And out onto the Rec-Tec they go. So if you like this video or enjoyed this video, press like. Go to the bell and get notifications. And please subscribe.